Hello, and welcome to the Let's All Just Get Along podcast sponsored by Cincinnati Soccer Talk. How are we doing, FC Cincinnati fans? Yours truly, Brian Weigel, here to discuss FC Cincinnati, Major League Soccer, and the wide world of soccer that's about to head our way here in 2 weeks. The MLS is back tournament. I'm joined by a great cast and crew this week, joined by my main man, my Harry Kane is back. Clay Winstead, how you doing, pal?
I'm fantastic. Spurs won a game. They had a clean sheet. I'm in such a great mood.
You good? How'd they do on the weekend?
A draw is, against a good team. I'll give Soups that. They're a good team. Okay. It's fine. We're doing all right. And, I'm happy to be here with you guys. It's going to be a good time.
Glad to have you back. Yeah, I'm just giving you crap, man. I got to give the main man, the boss, some love. So
I know. Got to lick the boot sometimes.
Got to lick the boot. Exactly. There you go. Joined by the co-host, I guess we'll call him, of March to Match Day podcast, Boston Razzle Dazzle Brazzle. How you doing, pal?
Doing well. Drinking some FCC Braxton Garage beer here tonight, and so I pulled up Coach's Untapped because it's probably he's got 1,000 beers logged in here, 42 Braxton Breweries beer, and he has not rated the FCC beer. Come on,
has he rated any FCC beers?
They did the Moreline one back in the day.
He's got to really dig down through this now. He wasn't prepared for that answer.
No,
always be prepared, Boston.
But I'm shocked that the garage beer is not rated in here. I'm gonna have to give him crap about that.
Well, Boston, what's your Untapped review of the garage beer?
Basic.
Well, we'll just call it. Anything better than absolutely awful is an improvement over last year. So we'll just, it's always looking up, baby. And we are joined by the man, the myth, the legend, Bill. Wolf slacking on the there.
I was waiting for the Wolfman, but okay.
He's
anyway,
leaving me hanging, Bill Wolfman Wolf.
I know. Oh well, that's what happens. Producers are, goofing off over there.
He is. How you doing, Bill? You doing all right?
I'm good. Just excited to see some soccer coming back into the United States. Imported stuff is okay, but I always like my domestics best.
I like that. Like my domestics best. Yeah, that is.
And I'm drinking a very fine vintage of Coke Zero today.
Nice.
Ooh, is that aged? That's lovely.
Zero sugar,
yeah,
Bill.
Yeah.
Bill Wolf, zero sugar. That's drinking champions. That's why I'm drinking.
I'm way too sweet to be drinking sugar.
Oh. Well, in that,
I found it, Brian.
Yeah. Okay. What is it?
Here we go.
Coach gave the FC Cincinnati Blood Orange IPA a 2.75 out of 5 stars.
Ooh.
The global rating is 3.6, so Coach rated it below the average.
He's a tough customer.
You know what they say? Coach doesn't know what he's talking about. It's all right. I'm joking. Coach is a genius. We love him to death. Love you, Coach. Check out Coach's podcast this week, Talking Tactics with Coach Goff. I'm sure that'll be coming out later this week. Where
Thursday
he breaks down a lot of stuff. Yeah, he's diving into Coach Stom and how he's gonna set up his team, make adjustments at halftime. It's a great podcast. One of the shorter varieties. It's not going to take up an hour of your time. So go check it out. Talking Tactics with Coach Goff. And of course, we are joined by the man, the myth, the legend, Nick Suberling in the producer's studio. So, Nick, we got the phone lines open tonight.
You know it. We're ready to take your calls, folks.
All right, guys. 513-399-KICK. 513-399-KICK. Dial in if you have a question and topic for the King's Hammer hotline. So go check out and talk to Nick while you're off air a little bit. Give him, cheer him up for the day. He is a Man United fan after all, so go cheer him up. So, no, I'm glad to have you guys in here. We did have a little bit different show scheduled. As you notice, it is a Tuesday night, and we are having a little bit of a schedule change this week, or this upcoming month. We will be most likely recording on Tuesday nights due to schedule changes with all of us. So we appreciate you guys tuning in, and we will be adjusting our live show schedule as well around the FC Cincinnati matches down in Orlando. So go check it out. Some may or may not be streamed, but we'll try to have as much content as we can there with Cincinnati Soccer Talk here or Boston and Brad March to Match Day. Heck, even Coach Goff might join in there. And hopefully we can get our newest man, DJ Switzer, involved on some of these shows. So go check us out there on all your different podcast platforms. So guys, let's dive into some FC Cincinnati news. And I guess the lead topic that's this week, even covered by Major League Soccer or really soccer globally, is that Jurgen Locadia has had his loan extended for at least one more year through July of 2021, where FC Cincinnati will be able to evaluate him for another season, hopefully. And it's being reported by Laurel Fowler that FC Cincinnati was given a quote unquote COVID discount. So he won't be, if we want to have purchase services, it won't be for the 10 million. It'll be for, we keep hearing 70 million, depends who you hear, but it's exciting. We're going to be hopefully seeing a lot more of Jurgen Locadia. So Clay, what do you think about that move for FC Cincinnati? Good bit of business.
It's a weight off my chest, because we've discussed this a lot on the show. It made a lot of sense. I was very keen to bring him even at that $10 million price range, but obviously it's really hard to make that business decision when you have only 116 minutes to see him. When we agreed to that deal, we thought we'd have him for half the season. We'd get a good look at him. So I could understand the hesitancy. So to be able to extend that loan for a year, have the opportunity to whittle down that price a little bit, I think it helps both. Brighton, clearly, he's not in their plans long term. FC Cincinnati need that, money signing, that big number 9 who's going to score us goals, and we get to keep him. And so I'm relieved. I'm happy to have him here. I'm excited to see what he's going to do in Orlando.
Yeah, very excited as well. Now, Boston, what do you think of the fact now that we have his rights in effect if we sign him after this 1-year loan until he almost turns 30, so we would have him until December of 2023. Does that excite you that we're going to have a player of his quality in his prime?
Yeah, I think the renegotiating of the contract being a part of this is really good deal for FC Cincinnati, because not only do they don't have to worry about just getting him from Brighton, but they also have the second part of it all locked away. I'm excited about that. Whatever you guys do, though, do not go look at our roundtable and see that we all said that, a bunch of us said that we should pay $10 million. If you do happen to go back and look at that, I want you to pay attention to the last line of mine that says, I think 6 to 7 million would allow FC Cincinnati and Brighton to both walk away from the deal looking smart. So that's the only thing you need to take away from my segment, not anything before that. Brian, I think you were the one that said no way on 10 million.
Absolutely. There's no way I would pay him $10 million. I think this COVID discount is exactly the move that FC should have happened. Now, do you agree with me, Bill, on that?
Oh yeah, I mean, especially considering the situation that you're getting into, where we have very little understanding of this player. Mm-hmm. I think, to me, what I was excited about was just some of Locadia's comments afterwards. He does truly seem to want to be here. This isn't just chasing the money thing. So, a little bit less money. He's still interested in being here. He seems to want to make a difference, wants to engage with the fans and make them happy and score some goals. And I think, anytime you can get a little bit better price, it's ideal. And with 160 minutes or less than 2 games anyway, under our belt watching them, and you could see quality, but, to be stuck with a $10 million deal on somebody that you really don't have any idea what he's going to look like down the long stretch, especially MLS. I mean, we badmouth it a lot and say, that European soccer is better, or some people do, but, for one thing, I think it's just a different soccer in some senses. Mm-hmm. I think it's a little bit faster, a little more physical sometimes. And players come here thinking that it's going to be a cakewalk because they think that the skill set's a little bit lower, but they find out that there's some athletic needs, especially some of these older players, are a little bit surprised by. So, I think we get the chance to see if he's going to pan out long term, for a full season, hopefully, or some kind of a season. I don't know what we're going to get. but we'll get part of next season and then we make a good decision. So.
Well, an interesting tidbit that's being reported along with this is apparently there is a game timer on this deal. So if we play him and he gets enough, I guess I shouldn't use the word caps, but he gets enough matches in, then that's an automatic buyout.
I think that's how it should work. I mean, and that's what he wants, right? He came here, first interviews he was giving for the club to the press and everything was he just wants to play. Brighton bought him for their record fee, £20 million. He doesn't play. It's on a bad team who almost got relegated last year. Then they loan him to Hoffenheim. He gets like 5 or 6 good games in. He's scoring goals. And then they come back from winter break and he's back on the bench again. The guy clearly loves to play soccer. He saw this as an opportunity to be the starting number 9 week in and week out. And I think if he's going to end up being that for us, then we should just go ahead and trigger it. I think it was a smart clause by Brighton too. But clearly seems Locadia wants it. So I'm happy he's here.
Yeah, I think it also proves to them that we're serious, right? That we're not just, playing around a little bit and borrowing a guy for a while and see if we can get some goals and then go off and try to find somebody else. If we use them, it's kind of like rent to own sort of. I mean, except that we don't get to keep that towards this payment price, I guess. But anyway, but regardless, if we use them, then we're obviously interested in him, and then it kind of locks us into the buyout. But I don't think anybody's unhappy with that, and I don't think anybody should be unhappy with that. If we use him, then we obviously like what he's doing, and why wouldn't we want to purchase him? So.
Mm-hmm. Now, very good bit of business, I think, by Gerard Nijkamp and FC Cincinnati. And kudos to Jeff Birding and the ownership group to open their purse strings and go make this move. I think we've said that when he was originally signed, but yeah, it should be exciting for FC Cincinnati to see how a legit transfer player like Locadia comes into the league. And I think a lot of eyes are going to be on him and FC Cincinnati in this Orlando tournament.
Yeah.
Brian, I think that's actually a good point too, which is, I mean, with COVID-19 and, the economy and all the changes and, the questions about the season, it would have been really, really easy for a club like FC Cincinnati that's so new, that has not had a great first year, is obviously not going to get a lot of revenue from this year.
Paying for the stadium.
Paying for a stadium. I mean, we got a lot of money going out, not a lot of money coming in, and not a lot of history. And they could have easily just said, you know what, we need to kind of dial it back a little bit, right? We had big plans and COVID-19 got in the way, and we need to kind of rethink our decisions a little bit. And they could have dialed back, but instead they kind of went all in. And I think that's a great sign from the ownership group and this club as well.
Yeah, I agree on that point. So hopefully it translates to some wins on the pitch, and we can come out of Orlando not 0-5, because that would be just awful. Speaking of more business, it looks as if, and we touched on this last week, that FC Cincinnati might have a chance to move up to first in the Major League Soccer allocation order. If you don't know what the allocation order is, it's high-profile former players of Major League Soccer, U.S. men's national team players that have gone abroad. And then when they have the opportunity to come back, there's essentially a lottery. It's if you rank the expansion teams, and then if you rank the teams worst to best, they have the opportunity to sign that player first, and other teams can trade and make some moves. We had when we signed, I guess, Nick Hegland, we traded the number 1 allocation spot away for some reason. We'll discuss it here in a minute. But long story short, LAFC, who was number 1 in the allocation order, signed Andy Nahar off the allocation list, which moved FC Cincinnati into number 2. And it's been reported by The Athletic that Inter Miami, who are currently number 1, are going to sign Leandro Gonzalez Perez from the allocation list, and that would move FC Cincinnati up to number 1. And there's been a lot of speculation. Jeff Wallner, Cincinnati Soccer Talk's own Jeff Wallner, reported with an interview with Gerard Nijkamp to keep your cell phones close in regards to Cincinnati's allocation spot. So there's a couple different ways we could go. It might be signing the rumor Fabian Johnson, or it could be a sign and trade. There is really a big opportunity here for FC Cincinnati to make a move either way. Is an example of what we can get here in trading allocation spots. Last year, Colorado traded the number 1 allocation spot to DC United and received 100,000 in GAM and 200,000, actually 100,000 in GAM for last year and 200,000 in GAM for this year, that's a big chunk of change. And also last year, Orlando traded the spot to LA Galaxy and received 300,000 in TAM of 2019 and another 100,000 in TAM for this year. So that's, again, big money moves. And it just kind of proves to you how bad of a move we made when we gave Orlando the number 1 spot and $300,000 in allocation money for Nick Hagland. So I love Nick, but
it's expensive.
That's expensive. You need to manage this money right. So long story short, set it up here. Bill, I'm going to go to you first. So if you have the opportunity here, what would you prefer FC Cincinnati do in this, especially with the whole, I guess, roster landscape change out there, whether bringing in international players or signing domestic players?
Yeah, I don't know if I have the answer for that. I would say, Fabian Johnson's been bantered around. Him and probably most of the others on the list don't really excite me a whole lot, at least the ones that I think that are reasonably available. I'd like to see us, trade the spot for some money, or maybe, trade it for maybe a reasonable player. I think, we have a good roster. We've certainly added a lot of attacking options to that roster. I'm a little worried about our depth in some areas. So, it'd be interesting for me to see us bring in a nice, $250,000, $400,000 player using either, money that we can get for that spot or just a direct trade of some kind.
I think that's the best move, because you're thinking about how many contracts run out at the end of 2020. There's going to be the rebuild just started this past winter. It's going to really come to fruition next winter. So if we have more money in our bank to pull off some good moves, I think the best thing we can do is just trade it to a team that really wants someone desperately and is willing to give up some money to do it. I think that's a great idea, Bill.
Yeah, I think Boston, you might know this better than me. Allocation money going into next year, people are going to have a reduced pot of that next year, I believe, unless they push the whole salary cap thing back a year. So it might be more advantageous to get that allocation money. Because if you don't, you lose it. If you don't use it, you lose it. So it's better.
Correct. Yeah. If you don't use it, so getting allocation money for this year would kind of be weird, because we don't really know how the season's panning out 100%. We believe there's the tournament and then a season after that, unless FC Cincinnati has a player they can bring in right now that is not on this list, and they can kind of use money to buy them down. Then I, like, for instance, I wouldn't trade for allocation money just to buy Cruz down or something like that this year. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and it doesn't help you next year, unless we can do what Colorado or Orlando did and kind of make it a multi-year trade. One thing I'm not interested in is Fabian Johnson. I was 2 years ago. I was a little bit, but kind of waning last year when the rumor popped up again. This year, I'm just kind of over it. I no longer think it's great for FC Cincinnati. Could he help? Sure. Will he turn the team around in some way? No, I don't think so. So that's one of those things where if somebody else in Major League Soccer wants Fabian Johnson, let's make him pay us for the rights to Fabian Johnson, because I just don't know how much he helps FC Cincinnati as we stand.
Heck yeah.
I had this later on the rundown, but I think it'd be a good time to discuss it now. Is apparently, the same report from Laura Fowler today said that we have a full roster going down to Florida in Orlando, and so we would have to, if we wanted to bring a big money player, whether it's a DP or another TAM player, we'd have to part ways with somebody. We have 20 senior spots full right now, and we are including, I believe, Darren Maddox in that for the time being, from what I keep hearing. So I don't know. I'd love to cut ties with Darren Maddox if possible, because he's a huge hole of change in that budget cap of $520,000, depending on how you buy that down with GAM and TAM. He's still a very big money spot for what will likely be zero production.
Yeah, I want to put an asterisk there next to that, just because we've asked the club, they haven't responded in the past, and then he wasn't at practice today, at least by any of the photos released. So if he is on the roster, he very well might be. He's just not here, in my opinion, at practice. So,
yeah, that whole situation is touchy and sensitive and weird. I mean, he had the issue, with the warrant.
Let's just say legal. Let's just say legal.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. The legal issues he's dealing with in Pennsylvania, whether or not he's also dealing with personal issues on his own. I think the club said he was allowed to leave the team, but whether or not he's technically on the roster or not is difficult. And it's going to be hard to answer that question. So I think the assumption is pretty right that our roster is pretty much locked and loaded.
Yeah.
So we're kind of limited in what we can do this season, unless we get some trades going.
It's weird because MLSsoccer.com has rough estimates, we'll say, of the team, and it says that we have 20 of 20 senior spots filled, but it only lists 19 players. So we'll have to see what happens. And I know due to Laurel's report today, made you question some things. So Jimmy McLaughlin's a senior player. We didn't know if that was going to be the case this year. We'll see how that works. So hopefully we could see a little bit of Jimmy. That's all I gotta say. Just give me a little bit of Jimmy.
With 5 subs, I'm sure he'll make the pitch.
Yeah, you never know. So I was thinking about this today. What does Jaap Stam think of some of these players that he just never heard of? Like,
how has he not heard of Penn Messi before? Come on, he's Penn Messi.
No, I think it's really cool. I can't remember whose article I was reading the other day, but somebody said that all the players were almost like renewed. One of the players was talking about practice, going like, all the guys are playing their hearts out. Like I think normally in training, a lot of the players eventually fall into categories where they kind of just like, okay, I realize I'm not the starting goalkeeper. I realize I'm not the starting forward. So I kind of practice just kind of gets into this own groove. But right now, it's a complete shakeup because Stam has no idea. Yeah. Like any of these players can prove themselves right now. And like, yes, their salary might impact a little bit of a decision, but there's a lot of guys on this team that have just been categorized under the last couple coaches, and now if they can beat the other guy on the field, they'll be starting.
There's a reason the new manager bump is a cliche, because it ends up being true a lot of the time. You get a new guy in there, players want to impress, they throw their hearts out in training, and you really get you get improvements, at least in the short term. Whether or not that sticks is the key. But you're right. I think these guys are excited to prove themselves.
There's a question on Facebook here from Joseph Pipitone. Hopefully I didn't butcher that. I apologize. What position do you think we need most now to make the most impact after only seeing 2 games this season? I'll throw this to Clay first.
That's a great question. Thank you, Joseph. And thanks for watching. We love you. I think it's hard to necessarily, shake up the starting 11 too much. I mean, obviously we don't know what Stam's going to think, but I think the important thing, particularly in this first tournament, is depth. And I think the one position that we don't have a clear backup for is center defensive mid. From what we saw, it's going to be Harris Medunjanin kind of sitting above the defense and pivoting and splashing passes all around, like Coach Goff's been talking about on Talking Tactics. But, does Cruz drop even further back? Does Frankie do that? Is Tommy McCabe ready for that role? We don't really know. Yeah, Stanko is another possibility, but I think we could use some depth there. I mean, maybe it's a Lachey. I just think the midfield generally is a little still unsure. I think our attack, we kind of know who the big players are going to be. And I would really love to see a shore up that depth there, particularly if you're going to be playing a lot in the heat of Florida. You want people who can fill in and perform well. So I think defensive midfield depth is really important.
Todd Carnes on Facebook says we need a marquee center back signing. What do you think of that, Boston?
What, Nick Hagelin wasn't enough for you, Todd?
Oh my God.
No, I'm with you. I think FC Cincinnati has always been a little slow, I guess, on center back, or at least with the way we've pressed in the past, we've kind of left ourselves vulnerable there, and maybe someone that's well acquainted with the system that Jaap's going to be running. Either way, I wouldn't mind a speedier center back.
Is that guy Pedersen?
Just to kind of mix it. I don't think it is, but that's just me. I've had this argument with people. I still think we are a center back shy on this team, a quality center back shy. For me, the pairing of Waston and Hagwin, or Waston and Vanderwerf are not just, it's at least on paper, it's just not the answer. We gave up an amazing amount of goals last year. We started the year giving up 5 goals again. So until I see differently, we're just not there.
Yeah, I would actually almost say those two questions for me kind of fall together. I agree with Clay that I'm a little worried about depth, midfield, even some of our attacking depth. I'm not sure whether our second line of players is at the same. Well, they're definitely not at the same level as our first line of players, but whether they can carry that banner for us. But I mean, look at the first 2 games, and we scored a goal and we scored 2 goals, and a lot of times that's a good situation to be in. Unfortunately, we gave up 1 goal more in both cases, right? So to me, the problem we have is defensive. Now, whether those players can change, whether Stom has a plan that he can, change the way that they're working, the way they're thinking, the way maybe their fitness. I don't know what the situation is, but maybe he can make some changes. But right now, if I just had to say after those first 2 games, for sure, I'd be looking in the back line, whether it's center back or something. But we need to do something back there.
Center back the issue, or is it fullback? Because I mean, I'm not necessarily on the train that Duplan needs to be benched right away, but he had some 2 rough games. Is Saad a starter? Garza has health issues. Is Gutman a starter? I mean, they're not necessarily. I don't know if it's. We all talk about center backs, but I think the whole defense could take a look.
So this goes into another point I was going to say. Is there is a rumor of a 2-day transfer period before this Orlando tournament. I don't see it happening personally because they're going to be flying down there in a couple days, and quarantine and all that stuff. That'd be difficult, especially be very difficult to bring in a foreign based player in that. So we'll see what happens there. There's been a rumor FC Cincinnati. Lettuce, love you. There's a rumor that FC Cincinnati was trading a winger. Haven't heard any solid information there. We'll see what happens.
Not
happening. So we'll see what happens. But I was going to make a point, though, that I'd be okay with our D-mids and our center backs, fullbacks going into this tournament as is. Let's see how they play. If they impress, great. We can hold on to them, save that money for a later time. Or if we need to make that change, make it in August. So.
I hate doing the let it roll. Let's see how it looks again. But with as many head coaches and stuff as we've gone through, we've kind of been forced into that. Like, you got to give Stom a chance. And of course, he's only had the team for a little bit. But I do like that we're hearing the defensive shift and pressure and kind of I think Richie said they're working on kind of a squeeze. I'm glad to see them working on that in the 4-3-3.
Yeah, shout out to our coach on Talking Tactics. He really broke down the defense and the offense really well on his podcasts, and how Stom usually looks at defense on during a game and on the pitch. I'm really looking forward to seeing the personnel he picks and how that is. So I think there is a lot of validity to the idea that we haven't seen him with a squad before. Let's see what he can do with 3 games.
Yeah, there's a quote from Spencer Ritchie today, basically just kind of harking to that. I think something that I personally noticed straight away is the intensity in which he wants to be on the defensive side of the ball. So that's something interesting to see, and hopefully it turns out well in the hot weather of Florida. Let's make the other guys run and be tough to break down. So. Transitioning to some darker news, we'll say. I don't know if that's the right word of putting it this way, but FC Cincinnati is in court. I don't know if they're back in court. I don't know if the Tommy Heineman stuff ever went there, but we're in court now. FC Cincinnati is suing and has been counter-sued by Los Angeles-based Premier Partnerships for breach of contract on both parties, alleging that each party has cost the other millions of dollars in potential revenue. There's been claims of either side of scheming to defraud the other side. Doesn't really seem like a great situation either way. Boston, you've kind of put your fingers on this subject a little bit. Tell our listeners kind of what's going on and what you think might come of this.
Sure. FC Cincinnati back in the USL era hired a company called Premier Partnerships, which was kind of a spinoff of some old US soccer and MLS execs who apparently had connections in the business world, and they could help your soccer club get sponsorship deals. FCC was trying to, this is at the point where they're still trying to get their MLS bid. So they hire this company. They've got all these connections and they think it's going to help them. Land sponsors, looking for a jersey deal. They're looking for stadium naming rights if they get that Major League Soccer bid, and maybe even help them a little bit get that bid. So, of course, they have kind of all these expectations. Premier probably comes in there and really sells themselves. I've dealt with these kind of not in sponsorships, but these kind of consulting firms before in business, and so they always come in. You want them. You have high hopes for them. They have high hopes to try to do all this work for you, and I think that's kind of where things.
Yeah, the goal
worked out at first, right?
Yeah, the goal for each of these parties was to get Premier to sell about $86 million worth of sponsorships over the time of their partnership, whether, as you said, stadium sponsorships, shirt sponsorships, Mercy Health, a bunch of different national partners, not local, but national partners. And it seems that Premier had tried, and Clay, you might weigh in on this here, they tried to potentially pigeonhole FC Cincinnati, FC Cincinnati into taking a deal that would impact them in Major League Soccer, whether that's accepting parameters that aren't accepted by the league or potentially putting into a bad situation where they would have to modify the West End Stadium to allow, I guess, the sponsorship to be fulfilled.
Yeah, in these situations is always tough, especially early, because we're basically just listening to each side tell their side of the story.
He said, right? She said. Exactly.
Right. So, FCC is saying, well, they gave us all these things that we couldn't meet. They really pigeonholed us. And then Premier is like, well, they never listened to our ideas in the first place. They, weren't really accommodating to some of our ideas at all. So at least right now, it's just difficult to say, which side of the story is true. And honestly, probably neither are at this point. I mean, they're both defending themselves in court. So we're really just going to have to see how it plays out. But it definitely wasn't a good partnership. Clearly, it definitely broke down, and they both ended up butting heads a lot. Clearly, now who was in the wrong? I think we'll find out soon. But I mean, they definitely did not. They weren't simpatico for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at it. End of the day, it's really hard for FC Cincinnati to get out of the contract without a lawsuit. So that's kind of why you saw FC Cincinnati move first, calling what Premier has done not adequate and kind of a breach of contract. So that way, if there's a breach of contract, FC Cincinnati can immediately leave the deal and stop paying them, maybe even get some of the money they've paid them back. But I think really FC Cincinnati here would settle for just being done and through with it. Whereas Premier they kind of feel entitled to, well, if FC Cincinnati does land a stadium sponsor, we still want our cut. So that's where we're kind of at.
Now,
yeah, and I think where some of the confusion seems to come in, at least from what I've read, is that, as you said, Premier came in and sold themselves, and they are executives and people from U.S. Soccer, MLS. So they kind of build themselves as, we know MLS, we can take you from USL to MLS, we can help you. And FCC bought into that and said, well, we don't really know what we're doing. We're in the USL, and that'd be great to have somebody who can help us. And now a lot of what I understand from FCC's claims is that they didn't know MLS. They were making a lot of demands and expectations and selling things to sponsors that literally FCC couldn't provide. They were contractually not allowed to provide. So they're kind of saying that, by going into these sponsors and making sales to them, hey, if you give us money, we'll do this. And FCC says we're not allowed to do that. So then Premier says, well, you're squashing the deal, and FCC says you're squashing the deal. And I think that's what it comes down to is, what did Premier say? What did Premier build them as? And did they put FCC in a situation where they couldn't take these deals, or did FCC not really in good faith, accept deals that were there,
Yeah, there's been a lot going on here, and if you want to chime in, 513-399-KICK, 513-399-KICK on the King's Hammer hotline. And Bill, I'm going to actually throw this back to you here, and I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. There's been a lot of, I made the joke at the top of the show about can we all just get along. There's been a lot of, I would say hate might be the wrong word, thrown at FC Cincinnati club president Jeff Birding in his job performance. I think you can say a lot of great things out there, such as the West End Stadium, the Mercy Health Training Center. But then you look at a lot of, recent things that I don't know if you can throw all things on him, but the problem with year one in MLS, Alan Koch, his apparently feud with John Harkes, the Tommy Heineman issue. Do you think this is another, kind of a chink in his armor where he might not be leading us in the right direction anymore? Or do you think this is just a tough circumstance that we're navigating?
So, I mean, I would say that I think people have some unrealistic expectations, in my opinion. I don't think we have a problem with Jeff Birding. My opinion, we aren't where we are without Jeff Birding. I don't think we would have gotten this far. I don't think this is the time that you throw him over the wall and say, we're done with you, because, it's been tough. I think it's exactly the point. It's been tough. I don't know that we can blame Jeff for some of the issues that we've run into. I think it's been unfair. On the flip side, I think a lot of times he stands up and raises his hand and says, I'm at the top and I accept blame.
Sure.
And I've appreciated that about him. From a leader, I don't expect perfection. I don't expect Jeff or anybody, the CEO of a company I work for, or whoever, to be perfect. What I expect them to do is to say, okay, that didn't work, so how do we fix this? I also think that, leaders have to give, the people that work for them some rope, right? I mean, if they try to do everything, which is kind of what happened in the USL days, Jeff just simply wasn't capable of that. Now he's got people he's brought in behind him, all of which looked good on paper. And maybe you can see mistakes that they're making, and Jeff accepts that, he is the leader and he brought them in, but he has to delegate. He can't do this all. Obviously we don't want him to be the GM. We want a GM. Well, Jeff didn't hire Ron Jans, right? And people bring that up as one of the more recent faux pas and a reason to get rid of Jeff, but everybody loved Ron. Everybody thought he was a great guy until they didn't. So, I'm not excusing him or saying he is a great guy. I don't even want to go there. I just want to say that, nobody was sitting around saying, well, that was a bad move. This is obviously a problem, until it was obviously a problem. And, I think maybe there was a few hints there, here and there, but I think hindsight is 2020. And I think I didn't see anybody on social media railing out there that he was going to be a problem. And I'm sure somebody's going to tell me they did, but whatever. But it wasn't, a loud enough voice that people were turning their heads and saying, oh, why is this guy saying this stuff? And I have to say that, you can go back to a lot of these cases, and to me, it seems like at some level, he's been the guy who has got us through some really tough times. And we should appreciate that, rather than continuing to look at this as just all blame for him. The only thing that kind of weighs in a little bit that I get where people say, which is, there's been so many issues that there has to be some reason, right? Like he's incapable. I honestly have to think back, and I have to say, who would have done something different? I don't want to, give too many excuses, but, every one of these cases, I didn't sit down and think, well, that was just a completely boneheaded move. I mean, maybe we can talk about, Hagelin. We've given the Hagelin deal kind of enough.
That whole roster build generally.
Exactly. But people blame Koch, right? They say Koch was a bad move and Jeff hired Koch. But here's the reality. I mean, Koch was recommended by MLS, right? I mean, he had a good pedigree, and things looked good. And, he freaking was, the best team. We were the best team of the season. So how do you turn around and say, we're not going to go with this guy? And I think sometimes maybe Jeff's issue might be that he was a little bit too afraid to make a decision that that would have seemed odd to people, even though maybe he had an inkling that it was the right thing to do, and he took the safe bet.
Sure. Now, Boston, people have been calling for Jeff's job today. They think that Jeff Birding should be fired online. Doesn't removing him send a worse message to the city than a positive message by removing him?
I think it does. I think that we're at the point here. We've already had so much instability at head coach. We've had our star DP player get moved off to our rival that we pay for because we didn't have success in that spot. And some of that's mostly due to, this roster build stuff is really due to all these coaches coming in and out. And, I'm with Bill. The only thing that I can really blame Jeff for is not hiring a GM sooner during the transition. And yes, he owned that. He came on this show and owned that. And said that yes, I'm firing myself. We should have a GM, and so I can't dog him for that. A lot of these other decisions have come from other people that have been hired. To get rid of Jeff right now sends a terrible. It shows one that we're still not stable. We're not going to be stable for a long time. And I tell you, the one thing I do appreciate about Jeff is if we do not win this year, we do not make it to whatever version of playoffs there are, if we fall out of this tournament, Jeff wants to win, and he's made bigger and bolder moves. He fired Koch. He went out. We found Jurgen Locadia. I know that's the GM, but he's spending money. He's talking to Linder and Meg and Whitman and getting these people to spend money. That's Jeff. That's his job, and I think he is doing his job.
Mm-hmm.
See, for me, I'm in agreement with y'all. I think it's particularly too early in this situation to call for his job. We don't know. We're just hearing he said, she said, as Brian said earlier. So we should really let the court figure out what's going to happen here. But I do want to say, the more these situations happen, the harder it is for me to give him the benefit of the doubt. Truly. I'm not calling for his job yet. I'm definitely far from that. Like I said, I want the situation to get resolved before I even contemplate the possibility of that. But it is hard to take him at his word when so many of these things keep piling up.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
I wonder, though, how much of these kind of things happen in other places. I mean, I think we're in a microcosm living here in Cincinnati that we see so much. I mean, I think we can go through examples of, problems in Sacramento, problems in Nashville, problems in other places. And I think we're getting the tip of the iceberg in a lot of cases. Mm-hmm. I wonder how visible this stuff is outside of Cincinnati to other clubs, how much they watch and pay attention to what's going on here. And I think, honestly, that 2-3 years down the road, new training ground,
sure,
new stadium, hopefully a stable coach, maybe a USL team, an NWSL team, and all of the new things are over, and we're actually just doing the work. I have a feeling a lot of this stuff is not going to be viewed nearly as large as it is now.
Mm-hmm. Well, we've got a lot more winning to do, Jeff Birding, so stick around, my man. All right, guys. Well, we were going to talk a little bit about MLS's back tournament. I think we are going to push that off until we get a little bit more of a firm schedule, and we'll have a special show revolving around that, and I'm sure Boston and Brad will have several great March to Match Day podcasts covering all things about that tournament. A couple more pieces of news before we head into Professor Suberling's listener questions. We've talked about FC Cincinnati maybe trading a winger. We've also heard potentially bringing in a winger. We also have a question here on, I believe, on Twitter from Brett Schroetz. Actually, no, that's just kidding. We're not. There was a question about Noah Lang on there about potentially bringing him. Noah Lang is I believe, a 21-year-old youngster from Ajax. And there's been some rumblings about that. A couple reports out of Holland. We haven't heard too much out there. We've seen a couple rumor mills in FC Cincinnati land discuss that. So we'll see what happens there. Keep your eye out on that. So go. Hopefully, stay tuned to Cincinnati Soccer Talk on Twitter, and might be able to find something there for you. Other piece of news is ex-FC Cincinnati coach Ron Youngs is now the newest head coach of Eredivisie's FC Twente. Talk about falling up. Am I right, Boston?
Oh yeah, he didn't do so bad for himself.
It clearly shows how much of a non-scandal that was in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
Yeah, how little that matters in the Netherlands. Don't think that would fly now, especially with all of our social interesting issues that we have going on right now. So I'm glad they made that move and have cleared the path for healing in FC Cincinnati land. Final piece of news is the FC Cincinnati Academy is launching an in-market residency program. The residency program allows non-local academy players to live with screened host families and attend local schools during the team's training and competition season, which typically runs from late July through early June. Local families are actually being paid to host these FC Cincinnati players. So, Clay Boston, if you need some extra cash, man, apparently you can have these kids live with you. Get a little bit more inside source.
I mean, if they're willing to sleep on an air mattress in my living room, then great. Otherwise, I am not qualified.
Clay wouldn't pass the screening.
No, I would not.
And I've done everything in my life to avoid taking kids to practice.
So, Clay, you're a 26-year-old retail worker? Yeah, no, thank you.
I wouldn't, Clay, you're a good guy, but I wouldn't put another human being's life in your hands. No offense.
I can really take care of myself. Let's be honest.
Bill Wolf now, I think you'd be a stellar.
I've done my time. time.
No, Bill's now an empty nester.
That's right. Uh-huh. Yeah, I shipped off the minivan. I am no longer a soccer dad or whatever. So, driving my sporty Accord.
There you go. Subs can host them, but that's a hell of a trip every day.
No, but honestly, if we read between the lines a little bit on this, there is some interesting thoughts here, which is I think this is starting to break down a little bit the homegrown player concept, right? This idea that each of these clubs have a region that they're allowed to select players from, and then these players are tied to these clubs and unable to move because, you were born in Ohio, so you have to play for Columbus, or you were born in Kentucky, so you have to play for FC Cincinnati, or however the regions are divided. Obviously, Cincinnati kind of threw a mess into the whole Ohio thing. But the point is that I think moving forward, there's been a lot of hints that that's going to fall apart. And, I think it's great to see that we're looking at the ability to bring in players from all over the nation. Somebody who wants to play for Cincinnati, who we think is the right player for our academy. Maybe it's a style of play. Maybe it's just that we discover them. And it gives obviously a lot more eyes looking at a lot more players. So I think it's good for youth development and hopefully for the growth of the academies overall in MLS.
Yeah, I
think
last
week, two reports out of Pittsburgh that FC Cincinnati has brought in 2 Pittsburgh players that play for the Pittsburgh Riverhounds Academy. So
kidding.
Those are going to be two that are in this residency program. I'm guessing they're not even from the state.
That'd be fun. That'd be hysterical. Love to do that. Actually, that'd be bad. As long as we can just beat Louisville City's program, that's all I care about. If we can take a couple of those players, I'd be very happy. And you look at some academies like Real Salt Lake, and they actually have a living in literally a hotel, apartments that these kids can live in. So we'll see what happens there. I think that would be a great avenue for us to go at some point, but you do have to realize that it costs a lot of money now. The revenue stream that MLS has never adapted to much has been the young kids and selling those kids on. So I'm sure there's a lot of stuff to go on there to get some more improvements in our academy system. Before we throw it on over to Nick behind the glass to do our listener questions, it's that time of the show where we give a big shout out and thank you to our tremendous supporters. And this time, the past several months, we're here for you guys. So thank you so much, especially to King's Hammer and Tim Bronsel, Tom Rose, Matt Adamchick, Mike Hudson, Brian Malone, Jamie Smed, Jonas Tom, Jack Emery, Mike Bowman, Kathleen Francis, Matt Emholt, Matthew Long, Joe Kaling, and Tara Mullins. Thank you so much for your support. And to learn more on how you can support CST, head on over to CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com/support. So without further ado, sending it back over to the man, the myth, the legend, the producer behind the glass, Nick Serbeling.
Thanks, Bri. Appreciate you letting me come on the show and serve as somewhat of an announcer here.
You were looking a little mopey over there. I had to give you something.
Oh, man. All right, first question, and I love that you throw this one first at me. Liverpool is superior to Man U.
I love hearing you say that.
Great fan of the show. When the face with symbols over mouth, are they going to release the schedule? Took me a minute to reread that. If we don't advance to the knockout stage, but Columbus also doesn't advance because Zardes blows a sitter 3 yards from the goal against us, would you still consider it a successful tournament?
I'll go ahead and take this one first. I do not care at all what happens to Columbus in this tournament. They are so beneath my mindset and mentality. Look, I honestly, what it seems to me, at least from what I've read of Stom and what he seemed to be talking about, is he cares about what he's doing with this team and how they take to him, how they respond together, how they grow together as a team. I want to see. I don't care as much about if we go 0-5. Truly, I don't. If I see this team starting to play consistent style and we see improvements in how and like in Frankie or the roles with Locadia or Kubo, I just want to see us get on the same page. And if we stick to that and we lose, I'm okay with that right now because, it sounds like we're still going to have a season ahead. So I'm willing to be a little patient with this tournament. And Columbus is, who cares about Columbus? Columbus doesn't matter.
Well said, pal.
Nobody else wants to chime in with that? All right, we'll move on.
I said it all.
I think you'll get a scheduled into this week.
Hopefully.
He's muted himself. Did you mute yourself, Bill? Yeah, he's back.
I did. Sorry. I was trying to be good and not make noise. So, sorry. I was going to say that I'm with you, Clay, in the sense that I want to be patient. I'm not going to cry if we're 0-5 at the end of this tournament. On the flip side, I have higher expectations for us. I think, we came into this season, we lost our head coach. We had an interim coach again. You might say that it was the same interim coach, but we had a lot of new players who didn't know him. So really it was like a new interim head coach. I think we have talent. We certainly have some attacking talent. We've made changes there. I think we should do better than we've been doing. I don't know that we necessarily make it out of the group stage, but I would certainly like to see us get some sort of points and at least start to look dangerous so that teams aren't like cheering that they got us in their group. Mm-hmm. So, and I think that I think we can do that.
I saw Subs struggle for a year trying to come up with new content every week after FC Cincinnati last year. So please don't do that.
Just as long as we could all agree that Columbus just doesn't matter. They don't matter.
They don't.
I want to win just because they have written us off. Their fans have written us off. I went on their Reddit page after the draw, and they were like, "Okay, so how are we going to do against Atlanta and New York? Don't even worry about FC Cincinnati. How are we just going to do against Atlanta and New York? Because they just assumed we were an instant win. So I would love to just get a win, just because no one will see it coming.
I would literally love to see us play Columbus last and repeat the first two games that we already did, right? And I would like for New York, for instance, to completely assume that they're going to get 3 points and come out, too cocky for their own good and for us to school them. But, we'll see what happens.
All right, this next one comes from Gary Randolph. Assuming we trade the allocation spot for at least one international roster spot, which field position do we use that spot on? I'd argue a defensive-minded central defensive midfielder might be our number one need.
We kind of touched on this a little bit, so let's do quick hits on this. Thank you very much, Gary, for the question. I can't remember who said it, but I think if you're not going to do right back, at least a right winger.
I'm going to stick with what I said earlier. I think Gary's onto it. Get another center defensive mid in there. Proper number 6.
I'm going to go with Brian right back.
Yeah, I think I am as well. As much as I want a center back, I don't think it's going to help us instantly and for a tournament's sake. And if we're just talking about filling an immediate plug and play, that's what I would go as well.
So, real quick question, guys. Zico Bailey's right back, correct?
Mm-hmm. I think so.
Yeah. Your kids.
There, yeah.
Am I allowed to chime in here?
Go ahead.
Please.
I still think we need a 10.
Yeah, somebody young. Someone you've been dying to see play.
But
you've been dying to see him play. We haven't seen him play.
But
he has done nothing wrong this season yet. I can't think of any reason to get rid of him.
Nothing wrong.
Okay, so what happens if something happens to him?
Well, you could say that about anybody. That's a weak defense.
I'm just saying. I would
Yeah,
like.
but we have no depth. But we have.
They've already coaches are the brand new coaches already talked about his pairing with Locadia. He's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
All right. This next one is from Nick Elder. Who would you like to see as West End Stadium naming rights sponsor?
I'm going last because there is only one right answer.
I want to see someone national that's not in Cincinnati, or they have a small a presence in Cincinnati, but that's actually a national firm. Because financially, if FC Cincinnati can pull 30, 40, whatever $1 million from some other firm, P&G and all these local sponsors that have money can therefore buy other sponsorships. So you don't tap your Cincinnati base too early. If P&G's on the stadium, then they're not going to be buying the scoreboards and everything else. They're going to get that included. So that's just my 2 cents. So I would go with Elon Musk on Tesla or something.
Hey, well, Orange Shots
SpaceX Stadium.
Orange Shots name is on the market. We can snap that one up.
All right, you're done.
Yeah. Too soon? Too soon?
Yeah, too soon.
Too soon. Okay, fair enough.
So I'll go opposite of Boston. I'm going to say it's going to be local. I think we've got a big sponsorship with First Federal Bank or First Federal First Financial. Thank you. And we obviously have a big deal with Mercy Health. So it's not going to be another medical. It's not going to be another bank. So to me, you're now starting to look at like maybe a Kroger's or a P&G. So I think Kroger's. Why not?
If Bry's going last, can I chime in?
Sure, yeah, go for it.
It's the Skyline Chili Bowl.
God damn it! You
easy one.
You son of a!
Wow,
Brian. There's no way that's bringing in enough money.
I had this all worked out. They raised the price of Skyline Chili cheese conies from $285 to $325, and all proceeds go to whatever. Go to the damn state. Jerk. You jerk. I'm never throwing this questions over to you again.
I didn't know.
It wasn't obvious.
Or
I spiked my Coke Zero bottle. It's all foamy.
Or great minds think alike, Bri.
I love you, pal.
But if they raise the price on cheese conies, come on
now. Did Clay go? Did you just say something stupid?
Recommendation that isn't a terrible joke that only I laughed at.
Go ahead.
I do think I think Boston's onto it. I think I grew up in Lexington. They changed the UK stadium to Kroger Field, and it's lame. I love Kroger's, but I mean, come on.
Okay, I have another one.
Okay, just interrupt me. That's fine.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I thought you were done.
No, please, Mr. Host, go for it.
No, go ahead. You had a great joke earlier. I just thought you were done.
Can't we just get along?
So I have a customer, and their name's Big Ass Fans. Big Ass.
Oh yeah, we have one of those in our building.
Big Ass Stadium. That's what I want to see.
Stadium.
Well, if it was
Big Ass Stadium.
If we were playing in that stadium last year, it'd be the Rumpke Dump.
There you go. Swoop
in, Coleraine.
Swoop in there, Brian. Land that deal. Collect your commission. Retire early.
Vince Shapiro, is that his name?
I don't have an actual big corporation to name. I'm sure there's plenty that would be great. But take one of those bids and donate some more money to the West End neighborhood. They need it.
Yeah, that's Tide Field. Extra discounts on P&G products when we do a clean sheet.
Mitch says clean.
It's almost too easy, Bill.
All right. Moving right along.
This next one is from Craig Hunter. Do you think it's possible Jaap Stam can improve our defensive play with improved tactics? Or do we need better defensive players to make that happen?
Couldn't make it worse, could he?
Yeah, no, totally. I think so. I think we were on the verge of it, but it just wasn't the focus at the start of the year. The focus was first score more because FC Cincinnati had a scoring problem. We saw that already starting to bear fruit. And then we're hearing that already that Stom has a defensive focus. So if I tell you what, if they come out and still can't get the defense together the rest of this year, then I don't think there's a coach in the world that can solve it. And then at that point, you have to go get new players.
I mean, going into this season, we were talking about the scoring drought and the focus was on scoring, like you said, Boston. We all thought the defense had potential. We thought the players that were there could get the job done. We were making excuses, maybe, whatever you want to look at it, and saying, when you're a defensive player and your offense can't hold the ball, then you're just going to get hit. You're going to give up goals. I mean, you can't be perfect. And I think there's still some truth to that. The reality though is that I think that our hold up play and our attacking play was better in the first few games. We did score some goals. We just gave up more. So it kind of set us back on our heels a little bit on what we were talking about earlier in the season, and at least made me rethink it a little bit. I think it is possible. I think we just, for whatever reason, that group back there do not seem to play as a unified or as a unit, right? I think there's too much individual play. There's too much trying to make individual decisions as opposed to just moving, as a block at times when they need to, covering each other.
Yeah, I was really uplifted by Spencer Rich's comments because listening to Coach and all this stuff, and looking at Coach Goff, and looking at Stom's career, like possession's really important to him. So to hear that he's automatically coming into the practices, he's not working about ball retention and movement necessarily. The big focus that he got from the players was, we are working our butts off on defense, and we're going to press the ball, and we're going to make sure our opponents know where we are and that we're dealing with it. And I think that's great, and I'm excited to see the fruits of that labor.
All right, this last one is from Danielle Lorenz. Who do you have winning the NWSL Challenge Cup, and why is it Rose Lavelle's Washington Spirits?
Don't say it, Boston. Don't.
Pulling for the hometown favorites. Can't blame them.
How do you feel if you're one of those guys who bet on the Orlando Pride?
Or,
oh, no.
I was going to say Portland Thorns before Tobin Heath bowed out. I mean, we're seeing it's pretty unfortunate, but I think if you look at the better teams from the past, I think it's North Carolina Courage. I think they're the money. I think they're the people to put the money on. If I'm wrong, I don't know a lot of their main players have bowed out yet. So, but it seems like
Courage. I think Courage are the favorites, just because they have depth and they're used to winning. Yep. So I would give the Courage the edge. However, don't discount Washington this year. They barely missed out on the playoffs last year. They still retained the roster. Not a single player is missing for this tournament. Like almost like Sky Blue and Portland both got devastated with players not going. Injuries or just, for whatever reason. Washington, full roster, healthy. I think this is, and Rose is back. Rose misses so many games for them with national team duty. So I think you're finally going to see a team that gives North Carolina a run for their money.
I mean, I hate to bet against Rose, but Boston, are we gonna do a gamble here? We're gonna gamble on Spirit versus Courage?
I would. Yeah, I'll take Washington. I feel pretty confident about their chances.
Let's do it.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for all your questions. We couldn't get to everybody this week. Also, thank you very much to James Ross, Chris at CBEALW, FCC Abroad, the FCC Fan. We got a lot of great questions from all you guys. Matt W. Rock as well. So thank you guys so much for all your questions. We couldn't get to you. Please keep sending them in every week, and we'll try to touch on as many as possible. Thank you, Nick, for doing this segment, my man.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much. As we mentioned, please check out the latest episode of Talking Tactics with Coach Goff. Will be dropping very soon this week. Go download all his stuff, subscribe, rate, review our show, Coach's show. It helps get our face in front of all the new FC Cincinnati fans out there. So it's that time of the show. We are here to wrap up. We're so thankful for you guys tuning in this evening, guys and gals. Thank you so much for downloading. If you are listening to this on Wednesday or later in the week, it's time for our final thoughts. I'm going to start off with Clay. Clay, give us your final thoughts on the evening.
Whew, I knew I might go first, but I still wasn't quite prepared. I think, as time goes on, we're starting to feel more and more, I don't know if it's comfortable or relaxed about sort of the situation we find ourselves in. But I think it's important to remember that the things that challenge us are still pretty present. Our timelines have looked more normal on Twitter or on Facebook or on Instagram, but we're seeing record highs of positive tests in Florida right now. And while I do not doubt MLS is, taking every precaution possible and they have good protocols in place, I think it's important that we just make sure that the safety of players comes first and foremost. And I hope things can go well. I'm not entirely pessimistic, but it is definitely something to keep on my mind. And I hope we can get excited about soccer, but not lose sight of the responsibility and the importance of keeping everybody safe. So that's what I'll have to say today.
Great. I'm going to throw it to Boston next, so Nick has enough time to cue up his sound effects. Boston.
My final thought is that we would have had more time to answer your questions if Clay didn't botch that naming segment. And I also wanted to leave all of our viewers with a gift. If you want to watch the NWSL tournament and you do not want to pay for CBS All Access, you can get 1 month for free by using the code JuneBinge, all caps, all one word, JuneBinge. And then you can catch the whole tournament and just make sure you unsubscribe before you have your first billing date.
Or you can subscribe and make sure the league gets money. So please do that. I'm joking. Good tip there, Boston.
CBS is never going to sponsor us now.
There you go. All right, now it's time for the Wolfman.
Oh,
he's killing me.
Yeah, I'm dying.
He's on mute. He muted himself. Love it.
It's just I put. You're not going to believe this. I plugged my phone into the phone charger, not the audio channel.
So you still have a phone? You still have an iPhone that has an audio port?
No, it's a lightning
old
port.
Man.
We could try this again. Give me another try here.
It's fine.
There we go.
I'm not going to rely on you ever again.
I know. It's like I'm going to
stealing my Skyline Thunder, and now you've struck out twice. Love you.
Sorry.
All right. It's all good, guys. It's all good. It's actually more fun when we do these live and the whole audience does it. So I think I'm going to kind of tail off of Clay a little bit with a little bit more optimistic opinion in my mind. I think, it's so easy for us these days to almost like root for the villain, right? I mean, I feel like we spend so much time looking at these numbers and seeing what's going wrong and where things are going to be problems. And I think that, there's a lot of positives. There's a lot of places where we see, life returning to normal, people getting jobs and I know we need to be careful, but at the same time, I'm optimistic of how things are going right now. As far as MLS, I have no doubt in my mind that this tournament is going to happen. I know there's a lot of doubters out there, but I think, they're aware that there's a spike in Florida right now. They're obviously going to take precautions. And in my mind, they understand that these players are literally their bread and butter. I mean, if a player gets sick and he can't play for 2 weeks, that's lost money. I mean, this is not the case of, there's nobody there to go take a picture or get a bottle of water. I mean, these players are the resource. They are the entertainment, and they're going to take care of them. I have no doubt of that. So I think things are going to be exciting and fun, and I'm looking forward to a great MLS season.
Imagine if they had to shuffle the schedule around the week before the tournament. That would be just be tough.
Yep.
So we'll see. Guys, thank you so much for checking out the show. We really appreciate you guys tuning in every week. We are going to try to have a live show again for the first match schedule pending. Maybe a bunch of you guys come over to my garage and we social distance like the Arsenal show when they got beat by Brighton, and it was
hopefully we don't walk out at
hysterical
in stoppage time.
Yeah, that was funny. So make sure to check us out. Follow all our stuff there. Thank you guys so much. We will be back better than ever next Tuesday again. Clay will not be joining us because he's wearing an ugly jersey right now. I'm joking. My brother might kill me. So, guys, for Boston, Harry Kane is back, and Bill Wolf. This is your host, Brian Weigel, signing off, and we'll see you guys again next week, where MLS is almost back. Bye-bye now.